Welcome to the Cape Town and Western Cape Business Events Week. I am super excited to be on this side on the camera for the first time in my life, except for my YouTube channel, but I'm used to being on the black box on the other side. I'm Kurt from Sensei V. What a wonderful view we have. Just please take a look behind me at that gorgeous, gorgeous backdrop. Ocean, Table Mountain, not a virtual backdrop, I promise. This is not fancy Teams call. So guys, welcome. We are super excited to have you with us. We have quite a lot in store for you this week. So today and tomorrow, we've got the virtual conference running from 10 to 12:30 every day. And then after that, we've got the B2B sessions. This is where you, as the online guests, can connect with our exhibitors. So please do go and make appointments with them. On Thursday, we've got the DDAT Masterclass workshops. And then on Friday, we've got the SA Events Council Events Readiness Conference. So please, all of these events will require extra registrations. On Saturday, we've got the Uphill Challenge, and then on Friday, we also have some tours. So in the platform, you'll see there is a registration, extra information you need to register for those events. So please do go and register for those events. Thank you. So we are welcoming people from all over Southern Africa, and this time we welcome you virtually. We do look forward to seeing you in person. I think all of us are dying to get out there, get into the real world again. But for now, we're going to keep it safe. We're going to keep it COVID-friendly. So please, we want to ask you guys to interact with us. There are chat functions in the platform. You'll see you can enter your name and then click to enable your chat. Also, most of the sessions today are going to be live. We've got a few pre-recorded, a few virtual, not a lot of PowerPoint and death by PowerPoint. We want to keep it as interactive as possible, but we need you as our online audience to help us. So for that, we're going to need you to submit your questions. You'll see there's a little block that says ask a question. You click on that, submit your questions, and as the panel is going to go in studio today, they will get those questions, and once they're done talking, they will respond to that. So please do help us. We need you guys. There's no one in studio here besides those who are on session. So please, at home, be interactive and help us today get this going. So you know this is South Africa, and we do have load shedding. If that happens, we do have an online backup MC who will interact with you while we're getting the internet or power sorted out. But while that happens, we also have some videos, so you can take a break during that time, but there will be an online MC who will navigate you through what is going to happen next. So B2B sessions are critically important. We have wonderful exhibitors who are ready to show you their products and their services. So from 1 to 5 today and from 1 to 5 tomorrow, please go and make appointments to those exhibitors. They really would like to show them what you are doing, and as soon as we open up, we can go and get all of those products and services reactivated again. Tours will be happening on Friday morning. They are complimentary, but will be happened on a first-come, first-served basis. So please do sign up for those tours. Small groups, COVID-friendly, and again, we will make sure that all the protocols are observed, but we do still want to get you out there and show you what the Western Cape and Cape Town has got to offer. So please do take advantage of those tours. They are absolutely complimentary, but they are going to require some sign-up. So tonight, or this evening, we're going to have a hybrid sake party. For those of you who have registered, we'll see you later at Lagoon Beach. For those of you who have not, there is a Facebook page for sake. You click on there and we will show you from 5:30 to 6 a stream of what's happening and give you a little bit of FOMO because you couldn't make it. I'm sorry. Askis. I'll be there. I'll have a cocktail on you. I promise, I promise, I promise. Right. Prizes will be available. We've got 2 ways you can win a prize. First way, make a meeting at the B2B with the exhibitors, at least 2 meetings, and you'll be entered into a draw. The second way is social media. Of course, don't we love social media? We have got the Cape Town Convention Bureau Facebook page, and we also have Cape Town CB, at Cape Town CB Twitter, and then the official hashtags for this meetings at the bottom of the screen: Business Events Week, where meetings matter, and meet in Cape Town. So please use those hashtags and get the conversation started. Show us a picture of how you are interacting with us virtually. You'll also be entered into the prize, and we can really say that these prizes are wonderful. They're top secret, so we'll let you know a bit later and reveal those. Not all can be revealed in this opening session. So without further ado, let's kick this conference off. We're going to have an opening video from Wesgrow just to show you that we are ready for business, followed by an address by Tim Harris, the CEO of Wesgrow. Thank you.
Welcome to Cape Town, South Africa, your gateway to the African continent. Open for agri-processing. Our beautiful region is one of the largest exporters of agricultural goods in Africa. Open for tech. We are Africa's leading digital hub. The Cape Town Stellenbosch tech ecosystem is the most productive on the continent. This is also home to world-class universities and global tech giants. Open for maritime. Cape Town's boat building industry is known globally for its excellent craftsmanship and innovative designs. Open for business process outsourcing. Cape Town is a leader in BPO, having the highest employee talent pool in this global sector, thanks to our world-class customer service and significant cost effectiveness. Open for electronics manufacturing. Our aerospace technology companies are supplying some of the world's major space organizations. This is where innovative design thinking meets quality skilled engineering, not to mention established export markets in Africa and the world. Open for creative industries. Cape Town is a mecca for creative storytelling with thousands of locations to choose from. We are home to the first world-class custom-built film studio complex in Africa. Africa's leading animation studio that keeps winning on the global stage is also based here. Open for green economy. The Atlantis Special Economic Zone is the only green tech special economic zone in Africa, offering compelling incentives to investors. For innovation, opportunity, and growth, Cape Town is open. Now it's time for you to open for business.
I'm Tim Harris, the CEO of Wesgrow, which is the tourism, trade and investment promotion agency. And on behalf of the agency, I'd like to welcome you to the inaugural Cape Town and Western Cape Business Events Week. The business events sector has been one of the hardest hit by the global pandemic. But despite this, the Convention Bureau for Cape Town and the Western Cape, based at Wesgrow, worked in partnership with the National Convention Bureau to secure a forward book of more than R500 million worth of events during the last financial year, which ends at the end of this month. We think that's a glimmer of hope for a sector that has been truly wrong-footed by the global pandemic and the lockdowns, and shows that people will be eager to getting back to face-to-face meetings. Although for this period, for the Cape Town and Western Cape Business Events Week, we're talking about hybrid events. How do you tap into people's desire to connect face-to-face, but also use the best digital platforms to make that happen at scale? The ECHO rankings each year show that Cape Town and the Western Cape is the #1 business tourism event destination in Africa. And we note that the 2019 version had us in the #1 spot as well. Our ambition is to continue to be the leader for business events in Africa across meetings, incentive travel, conferences and exhibitions. And Cape Town and Western Cape Business Events Week is an event that we'll continue to do each year to make sure that we maintain that leadership position.
Thank you, Tim, for that wonderful opening session. And right now, I'm going to move straight along. We're going to welcome Amanda Kotze-Nhlapo, the Chief Convention Bureau Officer at the South African National Convention Bureau. Hi, Amanda, how are you doing? We can hear you loud and clear. That's always a thing, right? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Can you see me? We're so used to having said that all the time now. I wish I could kind of still be party at the bottom like most of us are, business at top and party at the bottom. But today we are in person, so it's, I think, party right through was probably for me. But Amanda, welcome. I'm going to hand straight over to you, and you can share with us what the South African National Convention Bureau is doing for us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Bert, and thank you to everyone. And and Western Cape Convention Bureau, Tim, for your leadership. And I think it's fantastic that we can get together and that we can just, feel some part of normality. I think that is what we all focus on, and that's what we all need to focus on. When I was looking at, or when I was asked by the team to talk about, a business forecast, I thought, a year back, who would think that our forecast, I remember we were at Meetings Africa. And one of the things that we thought is that at that stage, ITB it's not going to happen. There was like rumors about it. And we were like, okay, let us put our hands up and, South Africa, because we don't have any COVID, and, we don't know about this virus. And yeah, there it all happened. I remember exactly where I was when it was announced that we will go into lockdown. And so venues and events and platforms like this week that is presented this week, for me, I don't want us to talk about a new normal. I want to talk about this is the future. This is how we can do it. And there's maybe a lot of negative towards that, but let us, as all South Africans, and very much people that are looking, being positive and always try to be positive, let us look at this as an opportunity. And part of this opportunity is that maybe there can be more people that listen to us, more people that can, that can look into our world, and that we can get more people, like Kurt did this morning, get jealous about not being able to be at the Saki function today. Would love to be there, or just to have that backdrop that you have there, Kurt. But I just have to say, a picture is speaking maybe 1,000 words, but there's nothing to the smell of, of the ocean, of the Atlantic Ocean in Cape Town, and the color of that beautiful mountain, and the vibrant, of the industry. So I'm going to quickly go through, what does it mean if we say we have a forecast? What is the stuff that we are looking at, and how can we assist, the industry to come back, to where we were? And I do believe, personally, I do believe that we will be, in a few years' time, we will look back at this and know that we went through it, we got through it, and that we are back, to where we want to be. And remember that very big goal of 2030. And these days I'm saying, let us, just whisper that number, 21 million. But I think there's a possibility, for us, maybe not not maybe totally that number in 2030, but definitely close to that. And how can we do that? What are we doing as a team South Africa? And I want to say business team South Africa, because we definitely all working together. And I think if there's one thing that we can take out of this time, of this pandemic, is that working together, that co-opetition that many of you heard me saying so much, as Africa, as South Africa, as the provinces, as the industry, we need to work together. And so I'm going to quickly, go through that we believe that we can salvage the order book. We can replenish the new business pipeline, gearing up for the future. We have two very exciting projects: bid support program review that we did during this time, and the National Association project. I think on everyone's lips are national tourism recovery strategy, and for us, we have, and you all seen it, you all know that it is it's the National Department of Tourism together with the private sector and South African tourism that we look at, a national tourism recovery strategy. And for us, we believe that reignite demand is where we are. And so we will initiate, there's initiatives to salvage the postponed business events, bid submissions. We continue to bid. And what is so great about it is that we can go and fill that pipeline up to 2027. Yesterday, I actually signed a bid support letter for 2027. And I thought, wow, that is quite something, for us to be able to still go out and bid. That is a positive thing. And in this time that we're a little bit, in a vacuum of holding, because it does feel sometimes if it's like on hold, we can then, do all the work so that when those people are coming, when they are coming to our shores, that we can make sure that there are still capacity, that our industry is still there, and that we can deliver, what we are promising. A fantastic and successful event, not just for our clients, but also for our industry and job creation. The bid support program review, there's a 365-degree review of that support program. And what is interesting, it isn't actually just COVID that let us look at it, but it was also something that was after 5 years, something that we needed to look at. And what was great now is that we could incorporate all the new ways of doing. And then, of course, the National Association project, something that is really close to my heart. And it's all about capacity building and projects for villages, towns, and small dorpies. So just an overview to say that 55 business events were supported through the program and was scheduled for 2020, but postponed to 2021. Of that, 69% of those were postponed to a later year. What is just sad is that some of it is postponed to 2021, and as you know, still very much unsure if we can host them. But what is great is there's a 460 million rand economic impact, 18,000 plus delegates, and then also 144 combined event dates. 9% of those people, 5 events, of these events were actually hosted virtually on a digital platform. And I think something that we need to ask ourselves, are we, when they are deciding to go digital, do we also take that opportunity and showcase to the world what South Africa and Cape Town is about? Then 12 business events were cancelled, really trying to, talk them through it. But as you know, what is, I think, one of our biggest challenges is the lead time. People have to make now a decision if they want to host the event in September and October. You know that we need at least 6 months lead time to make sure that there's a successful event. And I think the uncertainty sometimes then resulted, in those events being cancelled. The challenges, as I said, the postponed events that is scheduled for Q3 and 4 are being cancelled as we speak, for 2021, and we need to again, help them to postpone rather than cancel. The clients struggle to estimate how many delegates they can potentially attract because, around the world, and I just need to say that 19 countries, there are a travel ban on 19 countries to our country. And so it is very difficult at this stage. And, America and Europe, many countries in Europe being part of that. And that makes it quite difficult. Clients are hesitant to sign agreements, as you can imagine, because their bid support is directly linked with the delegate numbers. And that for me is something that we speak so much about, that this is the knowledge economy, and that if we are only linked to numbers, then we will not benefit from and get the benefits from hosting, these events from a knowledge economy perspective. Our initiatives is adjustment, as I said, with the criteria. There's no minimum size criteria for business events in 2020 and 2022. Virtual delegates methodology and multiplier so that we can incorporate that, the new way of doing. 30% risk tolerance. I think that is quite important. Our question was, do we rather spend money and they are not getting those numbers and we get the knowledge economy benefit, but also at least we get some people and not nothing, at least we host that event and not hosting it at all. And then simplify the contracts drafted with more relaxed clauses. I think, that for me, we hope that this will convince our clients and help you convincing our clients to host events. Then Of course, as I said, we are filling up that pipeline. We already submitted 46 bids. We pledged 18.8 million bid support. You can see it there, what it went to. And what is more exciting is that we already secured 15 bids. With 276 million rand worth of economic impact, estimated economic impact, 9,000, just over 9,000 delegates, and then 73 event dates and days. And as I said, it's between 2022 and 2025. You can imagine what that number will be if we can also win all 31 bids that are pending. And part of that is to now talk about, what is the new support to make it easier for our people to come to our shores. Then gearing for the future, as I said, the bid support program, we reviewed it. We went through a lot of consultation internally as well as externally. And the vision for us is that we will improve the efficiency and effectiveness of the program. That as our teams and, and as our partners and stakeholders, that we always talked about what happened before we had the bid support program to after we have the bid support program. And I think we were on such a good trajectory there, to just get more and more. And as we know, COVID happened. But like I said, I think if we constantly speak to our clients and everyone tap into this opportunity to assist our industry and to assist our clients to bring their meetings, whether it is a international meeting or whether it's a regional meeting, the support is there. And the most important, of course, for us also to generate the maximum ROI. And in that ROI, yes, it's money, but as I said, it's also the knowledge economy. It's also those sectors, beautiful, like the beautiful video that or AV that we've seen just now on what is those economic sectors that we can use this industry or, this industry can help, the meetings industry can help to actually further those economic sectors and eventually bring the ROI that we would like to have. And then the last one is the National Association project. And, if we go to Parliament here in South Africa, and for our Southern Africa listeners also, or clients and our partners and industry, there's one thing that is really top of mind, specifically of the Portfolio Committee of Tourism. And that is that we need to spread the love. We need to make sure that the economic benefits are spreading through, the provinces and not just in the main centers. And we then, after a lot of consultation, came up with, with this project, the National Association project. And as I always say, we talk about bit fit and not fit bit, but that we actually getting together, bringing our national association, the local association sector together, and help not just for them to grow, but also for them then to, go to to create future bidding opportunities. Sometimes, as we all know, it's very difficult. People don't put up their hand. They are too scared to bid. And we are saying, let us start, at home. And let us practice for the Olympic, when we go for gold, when we go for that international meeting, or when we go for that regional meeting. Like I always say, let us be in it to win it. And what this whole project is really aim to get to is that we capacitate the local association sector in South Africa, that then will enable the sector to start hosting regular national meetings, rotating in the country, and to create bidding opportunities, as I said, for future international conferences. Where are we? I think bidding capacity building, is very important for us as part of that, but also very important is the infrastructure development. We, as with all our convention bureaus across the country, across South Africa, we identified 3 towns, small towns, to the likes of, and I know that the Cape Town and Western Cape Convention Bureau put towns like Wellington and Saldanha, forward, and Swellendam, and that we are looking at those towns and that we develop the infrastructure to host the national meetings and to host smaller meetings, so that we can also make sure that the unique experience that we claim that we can offer as Africa and as South Africa, that we can also spread that to not just the leisure tourist, but also to the business events delegate. And so for us, that is where we are. Busy to develop that, and that means any infrastructure. Now, I always say it means like event organizers, your caterers, your printing, your AV, and all those things, that it actually become, the procurement will be local, and that we actually start to build up these towns, that we can go with confidence in certain instances to say, here is, the small dorpies that you can come and host your event. And then also something that is very excited is that it directly will contribute to the leisure, domestic leisure targets, visitors. I always have this thing of, why are people not stay on when they are in those small towns? Why are they not, explore the absolute gems that we have, the gems that we have in that towns, and in that, in the environment. And so part of this program is pre and post tours, and that we also will assist the neighboring regions to offer these pre and post tours to our people, that the delegates that goes to these national conferences, and there are financial support, for this project, and there's the same process that we will go through, all to assist our country in getting back to the numbers that we would like to see, getting back to the business that we would like to see, and really making sure that South Africa is still out there, and South Africa is still a competitive destination to host business events in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Amanda. That was fantastic. Thank you to share with us what the South African National Convention Bureau is doing for us. So I'm going to take us now into our next session. It's a live panel discussion. We've got someone who is very close to my heart. We've been friends for a very long time. Gwyneth Matthews is the moderator of that session, and the session is From Ideas to Success. They will be sharing their ideas and their experience in the last while of what they needed to do to pivot. I've pivoted so much, I almost went 360. So I'm back now on the other side, and I don't know where I am anymore. I think a lot of us feel a bit uncertain of the times, but our panel is going to share with us what they've been doing, what ideas they've managed to implement, how they managed to change their business, how they managed to persevere through the business. So, Gwyneth, over to you.
Thank you so much, Kurt. It's really wonderful to be here with my panelists, and more so just with some colleagues from the industry. It's lovely to be here with the Cape Town and the Western Cape Convention Bureau, and obviously also to be sharing the space with my dear friend Kurt. So thank you to all of the virtual participants who are joining us today, and to my two panelists with this amazing background. For those of our colleagues who are joining us from Johannesburg, as Kurt said, this is not a green screen or a virtual background. This is the real deal, and aren't we so fortunate to be able to meet in a place like Cape Town? Just a couple of reminders, as Kurt alluded to in the introduction. We really would love to see where you are joining us from, whether it's with your colleagues in your office, or whether it's from your work from home office with your children running in the background. Please send us photographs and tag us on the social media platforms. And also remember to use the hashtags, hashtag Business Events Week, hashtag Where Meetings Matter, and hashtag Meet in Cape Town. So without further ado, we're going to go into our panel discussion. I'm joined today by Renee Jordan, also an old friend. Renee, thank you for joining us. Renee is the Managing Director of Game On Events, and she's the Race Director of the Sanlam Cape Town Marathon. Thank you for joining us, Renee.
It's a pleasure.
We've also been joined today by Rex Bowden. He's the Managing Director of Catalyze, and he has brought us some amazing ideas over the last while, including the Ocean Innovation Africa, Africa Games Week, and Taste South Africa. Before we go into the kind of nuts and bolts of how you've moved on your journey from taking a new concept from kind of ideation into implementation, then measuring the success. What I've certainly on a personal level sat with in last year was a lot of ideas. I mean, I think I probably started 5 businesses in 2020 or launched 5 ideas or ran my mouth off and told people what I was about to do. And of those, maybe 1 or 2 actually took off. But before stepping into that space of taking off, I must admit, for me, there was a lot of fear of what might go wrong. There was kind of sitting with that thing, thinking, is this going to work? I wonder if we can just maybe touch into the humanness of that process for you guys. You know, you were, Renee, I know that you had to take a marathon, which, you know, is a marathon, it's an outdoor sporting event. And you then sat with the idea of how do we make this a virtual experience, but a quality virtual experience. Can we maybe start with you and just talk to us like through what were the feelings you sat with and what were the obstacles, the dialogues you kind of had with yourself to push through that?
Thanks, Gwen. I think it was, I must say, I was appointed as the race director a week before we went into hard lockdown. So, you know, you're starting in a new role, an established event, but the plan was that we would be planning a road running event in the streets of Cape Town. And having just been appointed and going into hard lockdown, I think one of the challenges I faced was that, I mean, it's kind of a new job. You know, I haven't met the stakeholders in person, so we went straight into like a virtual office, meeting everyone on Zoom. And then you're right, we immediately had to start planning something different. And at that stage, we didn't know what the different would be. I mean, that was March and the event was planned for October. And as time progressed, and even early in April, we realized that, you know, the chances are very slim that we would be able to have an event in the streets of Cape Town. And we started looking at a virtual offering, and it's been quite used before in Asia and America. But the concept was very new in South Africa. And we set out to look at the virtual race offering, and we wanted to be the leader. So we announced it very early on that we will be going virtual. We didn't just want to kind of kick the can down the road and postpone, which a lot of the other sporting events did.
Yes.
So we made that commitment that it will be a virtual race, and we wanted to do something completely different. So we set out, okay, we want this virtual event. We're going to build an app. And most people will tell you you're crazy to build an app in 5 months from concept development to actually having it in App Store. But I think that was part of the challenges and the fears that I personally went through, was that, you know, you have all this experience and 20 years of experience of organizing real events. And all of a sudden I was sitting weekly meetings with app developers and designers. And I think just the fears that came with that, the uncertainty, and quite early on we realized that we had to bring in experts to help us with that planning. Yeah, so I think it's just the uncertainty that was at play. It was a new role. I wasn't able to present the event for my first year. You know, I think that was a disappointment on a personal level. And then that constant challenge of saying to yourself, okay, but now we have to think out of the box. And like you say, you know, you almost started 5 businesses. It was the same with us. We wanted to take the event to the runners, but how do you do that? It's never been done before. So, I mean, it was that thinking out of the box and recreating that experience. So we ironically came up with a concept, Cape Town in a box, not out of a box, but we wanted participants to have a similar experience, so they could run anywhere in the world, but we wanted to give them a little piece of Cape Town. So we created this box, which was delivered to their doors with a medal and a race number and you know, the goodies that would normally be in the goodie bag. And we had 18 refreshment stations across the country. And, you know, I think at the end of the journey, it all looks like success, of course. You know, it all worked out well. But behind the scenes, we definitely had challenges. I mean, I think that goes without saying, a lot of learnings, new technology, working remotely. being a mom like yourself, you homeschooling and having a million
Yes.
Zoom meetings a day. So those were all challenges. But in the end, it worked out well, and a lot of learnings from that.
I really loved what you said at one point. You referred to the craziness of it because you really are sitting in a situation where you're trying to convince people on a certain journey, and many people actually look at you as if you are crazy. I listened to a podcast recently by Brené Brown, which is called the FFT. It's the bleep first time. You can fill in the blank of the first F. I can't say it on this platform. But she speaks about the uncertainty and how when you sit in that space, you are consciously aware of your incapabilities. And then as the journey progresses, you become consciously unaware that you are just doing it anyway. It just becomes something natural. So Rex, from your side, just speaking about that journey of having to start a new idea, what was that process like for you?
I think we get very good at technology very quickly. I think that's the key. So just yeah, from the get-go, we looked. I mean, most of our work outside of Ocean Innovation Africa and Africa Games Week is representing international trade shows overseas. So it's very funny because all of us have to advance the technology. So
Yeah.
we think that it's just us. No, we are only. I think it's very insular. You're sitting in front of a Zoom screen. It's all about you. You know, you see yourself on
Yes.
the screen. You're in your own space. You haven't got other people's emotions around you and their movements and stuff. So it's very insular. And it's much the same all over the world. We don't realize that. So huge international companies, the largest event organizers in the world, all tried to go virtual, and most of them all fell on their faces. They all struggled because it was new to everybody.
Yeah.
So I mean, we did the same. I mean, we jumped on and we tried to build export portals and virtual event platforms and get people involved on doing that. And I think it's come down to, and it's sort of, I think everybody's honed their skills over the last 12 months. But what it's ended up coming down to is the reality that it's that human aspect that people need.
Yes.
So the more and more we did international virtual events, and everyone tried to replicate an exhibition, physical exhibition as a virtual exhibition. It's impossible. But we didn't realize that. We thought, okay, people have to meet. They have to, they have to engage, and they got to connect. But it's very difficult when people are able to click an X, and that's the end of it. It's hard to capture them. So you have to have that human element, and I think, I mean, we pushed that during the year with the international organizers as well, and said, there has to be someone on the phone that speaks to someone. There's got to be one-to-one meetings that are set up for people, because when you go to an event, you walk through the door at the ICC or at another venue, and as you walk through the door, there's something happening over there. You walk into a conference room. You're in the conference room. If you're tired of that conference, it's not that easy to leave, first of all, because everyone looks at you. And secondly, when you do leave, you walk into an exhibition hall. You don't just enter your bedroom again or your office space, wherever you're working, and nobody knows about it. So and obviously you're bumping into humans as you go. So it was something that we had to learn pretty fast. I mean, talking to a lot of the exporters that we work with and taking them overseas and pushing them to make meetings with people overseas was our challenge in the beginning, but then realized the one part of the challenge we weren't able to control by doing those international events is we can't control the visitors and attendees on the other side, because we didn't have connection to them. So with our events that we took forward for Ocean Innovation Africa and Africa Games Week, and then Taste South Africa, which is a specifically very niche B2B meeting for 10 companies, 20 buyers. The idea with it was that we would be talking to everybody nonstop. So all of our events, it was a communication situation. So, and I really like, Renee, that idea of dropping off something at someone's house, because funnily enough, people aren't doing that overseas. I'm talking to a big international now in Dubai. They're doing a big event, and I said to them the other day, they said a whole lot of people are going to only just be doing the event virtually. But I said, well, you are also doing a physical event. Now you're going hybrid. why isn't there a space where products can just
Yeah.
be sitting on a stand, and there's a hostess there that is
Yeah.
showing you the product, and they can still be virtual, but then there's something to touch. So it's I think it's coming up with ideas, and it's difficult because one, it's money.
Yeah.
Money's very, very tough. I mean, companies that were doing big international events overseas are making not even a tenth of the amount of money that they used to make on events. But everybody wants to go back. So
Yeah.
you have to come up with ideas. And yes, ideas don't always work. And
I think what's comforting out of what you said at the beginning is that this has been a challenge for everybody. Of around the human connection is so important, you know, and whether it's, you know, an Uber delivery, you dropping off a mini event. I'm going to, in a minute, speak about specifically about the events you've done. I'm very interested in the marathon, and I'm very interested in something as tangible as a taste event, and how that translated kind of virtually. Before we get into that, though, I just want to talk about getting the buy-in of all of the stakeholders into a new idea like this. If we think, but if we think from a conference organizer point of view, you know, there are the sponsors, there's the venue, there's the food and beverage side, there are the delegates, there are the city stakeholders and the convention bureaus that you work with. And that's a lot of different moving parts. And then there's your delegate. I think, you know, that's the main kind of end user. How did you go about convincing people if you need to? And did you have any sort of stumbling blocks? And how would you say you went around getting that sort of cohesive buy-in from all your stakeholders to push your new idea forward?
I think from our side, I mean, developing the app, we had to convince our stakeholders that, I mean, it's a work in progress. It's not a finished app. So I think, and that's when we also realized that we had to partner with, you know, the experts and make sure that our service provider was credible, that we could actually, you know, be confident that that app would be delivered on time. But, you know, we were lucky. Sanlam is our headline sponsor, and they were very open to the new ideas, and, you know, also constantly looking at how can they take this virtual race, the app, and still, you know, use it as an opportunity to reach a wider audience. And I think that's where they were actually the first to see the opportunity in that. You know, usually the race is in Cape Town, and we have 51% of our participants from outside the Western Cape. But, you know, now all of a sudden you have this ability to reach a global audience and an audience into Africa, and Sanlam really liked that idea. But it did take some convincing with some of our other stakeholders. I mean, to explain a concept, when we first spoke about it, people said, well, are you going to sit in your lounge, you know, with these virtual glasses on and be physical and running the marathon? And we had to explain to people, no, it's actually just an app with an interactive audio experience. So we highlighted 30 landmarks of Cape Town and the tracking ability. So it took a lot of constant, I mean, many Zoom meetings explaining what is this virtual race, what are we, and convincing it. And you know, some of our stakeholders, it took a bit longer for them to buy in. But as time progressed, and once we actually had the app and we tested it, I think people came to the party. But I mean, you're 100% right. There's so many moving parts, and we looked at ways that how can we actually give our sponsors still a return? Because that's at the end of the day, you want some long-term longevity. It's now virtual, but how do you remain and keep your partners for the future? And that's when we actually conceptualized the live broadcast of our virtual event. And when I went to SABC, and that was also like in May, June last year, and said, okay, we want to broadcast the virtual race. Like, are you out of your mind? How do you broadcast the virtual race? And we conceptualized, and we actually had three locations where we had the elite athletes, the top South African athletes running in Pretoria and Potch and in Cape Town, and kind of secluded bubble environments with the virtual race with 15,000 other people across the globe. And for the first time, they had to stretch themselves, say, like, how do you broadcast it from a technical point of view?
Yeah.
And I think the learning there was like, it was really team effort. We had so many meetings where it was, okay, what do we create? What is the product? Because it's not a race where you just run, the cameraman follows the leader and there's your production, you know.
Yes.
So we had to do a lot of innovation again with how do we make the story interesting, and we turned it almost on its head, and we said, instead of just focusing elite athletes, we're actually going to be focusing on the human interest stories, you know, the mom running for cancer, and the kind of disabled athletes. We had some fantastic Paralympians that took part in our event. And I think from a global point, we for the first time, we were able to get a global ambassador. So we had Mo Farah as our ambassador, and he actually ran it in London, and we brought that in on the broadcast. But coming back to the stakeholders and the buy-in, it took a lot of convincing, I'll be honest with you. But it was a constant development, and you know, our product, what we set out, it just grew and grew and grew as our partners, you know, collaborated and added to it at the end of the day.
And just from what you said earlier, Rex, that idea of bringing in that human element, you could easily, like you said, have just followed the elite athlete, but you decided to use storytelling as part of your kind of broadcast methodology. And there's so much power in that storytelling, isn't there? Especially in this new era where we are so desperate to connect with people.
I think, you know, more than ever, and we saw towards the end of October, we were the first to announce a virtual event, but we were one of the last to actually happen, and we saw virtual fatigue. And what really kind of lifted the spirits was actually focusing on the average person doing their first marathon, or, you know, somebody that have never run doing a 5 or 10 kilometer and they're doing it for charity. So I think people were just so hungry for kind of the human element in it, and something for reason. I think that's something that came out of the pandemic that, you know, I think it made us all realize that there's more to just the chasing of faster times or a goal.
Yes.
You know, there needs to be more to it, and we were able to translate that into the broadcast as well.
I really, if I can jump in there, I think, I mean, that's lovely, because what you say, there's thousands of races that are shot, and you always see the front runner at the front. And what people, I remember watching the Comrades when I was younger, the guys you actually want to watch is the guys coming in that last second. That's the heart.
Yes.
And I think what we found with events that we did last year, we had, like with Africa Games Week, we run a series of other events underneath it, so it's like an umbrella event. But one of our partners said, you know, there's nothing, we don't want to be involved, because our event is like an international event that happens in South Africa.
Yeah.
So it's not really, everybody's heard that overseas. There's 100 events that happen in the gaming industry each year talking about that. But why we had to do our event and continue the gaming part and about the African gamers is because no one else is telling that story.
Yes.
We're the only ones telling that story. And I think what we found, even with Ocean Innovation Africa, it's the right content, because there's so much content overseas. You know, there's someone said to me the other day that meetings are way more important than content now, because, you know, you get really one-to-one details with them. But what is important about content is having special, different content.
Yes.
And that's been, and now you can, I mean, something that you've done now, I mean, you've got that content to showcase on LinkedIn, on Facebook, on the amount of information and content that you've got now for the future of a promotion of your event is amazing.
Content really is our new currency, isn't it?
It is, yeah. And and you can use it over and over again and really get more people. And now that you've got that content as well, you've also now got the reach. So what we saw with our event at Africa Games Week, usually we have about 70 Africa developers at the event. We had 150 African developers from all over, and we just found these people from all over the place because they didn't have to travel anymore.
Yeah.
So it is an amazing thing to get that reach. But obviously people at some stage want to come back and meet together, but at least you've got amazing stories, interesting content, and telling, when you're doing events in South Africa now, you can actually run one of the best events in the world based in South Africa. You don't have to be in Germany or in the UK or in New York to run the event. It can be happening here, but you can get people in from all over the world attending, which is
Rex,
awesome.
I just wanted to touch back on Taste South Africa. So I can visualize something like Ocean Innovation Africa and Africa Games Week being this new idea and this new kind of version of the event.
Mm-hmm.
But I find it interesting that an event so tangible as a taste event, explain to us how you had to get the buy-in from your stakeholders with an event like that? Was it easy? Was it difficult? Was it interesting?
It was difficult in the beginning. It's an event called Taste South Africa, and no one's tasting anything.
Yeah.
So, the idea at some stage is to take it to where people are getting deliveries and stuff to their door. But the idea of the event is just to connect South African exporters with international buyers, and it's that first introductory meeting that they're having with them. I think the reason why it got off the ground is because we are doing virtual events overseas, and they were food events, and they are technology events and healthcare events, but that issue with actually finding that specific buyer in the market that you can develop with and understand what they're doing in the future sold it to them. Because instead of, we do a lot of delegations overseas with the DTI, with Wesgrow, TIKZN, and they go to big shows overseas, they send a group of people over there, and those people meet with someone, but they, a lot of the time, or 90% of the time, don't know who they've met with. Yeah. Whereas the Taste South Africa was a little bit different. They have a full disclosure and transparency of who they're meeting. They can speak to the companies. How is it going with this meeting in 3 months' time? Specifically, how is this big retailer overseas going? Is there an opportunity from them? And have this list of amazing buyers to maybe one day bring here or have another meeting with. So it was difficult to sell it in the beginning, but I think because there was such a need to meet people, they were saying, yes, we really want to do this. We need to get people meeting, and we need to continue business. And there weren't many associations in the country that wanted to take this leap. It's not happening anywhere else in the world. So it's something nice for us. But I've got colleagues, like counterparts in South America, I've got counterparts in Australia, in Europe, and they aren't doing it. So we want to try to be the forefront of those B2B meetings.
I'm fascinated by that concept of taking an idea which most people will go, are you out of your mind? How are you going to do an event where people have to taste food and they can't taste food? But it's just I think a reminder to us that, you know, some of the crazy ideas are sometimes the best ideas, and to push forward with those. Just a reminder to our online viewers, below the little screen where you are watching the live feed, you'll see the chat box where you can just leave comments, and you can comment on the view or tell me how beautiful I look, whatever you like. And then there's also a little button at the bottom that says ask. If you would like to pose a question to either Renee or to Rex, feel free to pop your question in the chat box below the screen. In the event landscape, as we kind of are used to it, one of the main supply chain, or one of the main areas that we used to work with, and usually one of the biggest parts of our budgets in times gone by, would be venues. And even though our entire industry and sector has been hit severely hard economically in the last year, I think our venues are really the ones that are kind of crying out for support and really looking to shift their offering to be able to serve this new era of eventing better. I was delighted at the fact that Amanda brought up the rural towns like the Wellingtons and the Saldanhas and the outer lying areas within the Western Cape region, you know, where internet infrastructure may not be at the level that it is in order to stream live events and so on. What is it that you are looking for in venues at the moment? And what are some of your ideas or some of your insights as to what venues can start doing to be better placed to serve this new era events? We'll start with you, Rex.
Okay. Put me on the spot first. Look, they've got to be able to understand what an event looks like to start with. I'm actually going through a process at the moment on a big event for June, and speaking to a lot of venues. But I'm not sure everybody understands the idea of hybrid and broadcasting out. So the idea that an event now is it always was a production, but it's almost a TV production now. Yeah. So that's what we're going to be shooting. That's what we're wanting at our venue. So a venue has to be firstly have amazing internet. It's because things are going to get streamed, and there's got to be not just outgoing streams, there's got to be things coming in as well. There's got to be meetings that are happening online. So you're very aware of that. And I think a lot of venues understand AV as lights and sound. The idea of having a film crew that can come in and work with them is key. And that's got to come down as well to how your venue looks. So if your venue is looking a little bit shabby and needs a paint, it's got to be a big part in people's decisions of what they choose. And that's just not just your walls and your facade of your building, but everything around it as well. Because now when I'm looking at a venue, I'm going, okay, this is lovely. I've got an ocean behind me. It's nicely maintained everywhere. It's got to be cinematically very effective. And that's because besides just shooting us here, you want to see what else is going on. You want to have interviews with people at the coffee bar and make sure it looks nice. So I would say that's the key, to make sure your venue is immaculate, and that you've got ideas of what can be shot at your venue. So it's not just your conference hall, it's everywhere. It's all over the grounds and be maybe a bit more imaginative as well. So instead of us sitting in a back room, someone thought of a great idea, let's look over the ocean behind us. Lovely. So if you can think along those lines and have ideas for people when they come, it's got to be key.
I think that is a key point. I think certainly from some of the event organizers I've met with, this is so new to everybody. They're not even sure, what part of the event needs to be face-to-face. Can we use like you say, a coffee shop as a virtual studio to do a Q&A with one of the keynote speakers, or what can we do? And I think that's quite critical, is that our venues start looking at the space they have, how it was used traditionally, and now going, this will make a really cool studio, or, this would be amazing for outdoor. I've even seen recently that venues were making their space available to shoot local artists, so that local artists could sell their little music intros as fillers for conferences in a beautiful background in the Winelands, for example. From your side, Renee, you're working with venues?
Yeah, I think I'll take it, I'm coming from a sporting background, so, I'll kind of invite venues to look at differently from a hybrid point of view. And I think with the levels of lockdown and the regulations, I think there's an opportunity in the small numbers, look at creating niche events. From a sporting point of view, I think people are looking at more things that's authentic, so if your venue allows, create a weekly run from your venue, or if your venue doesn't allow outdoor activity, and you're talking about boot camps, all different types of physical activity that you can introduce to your venue, is to perhaps look at, kind of a conferencing, but is it a sporting expert, that you do a little webinar, cost-effective webinar that you're streaming and looking at a new audience, maybe when it's always kind of been in the past business to business, now look to directly to kind of the consumer and different target markets, maybe some target markets that's been out of maybe previously not even featured in your business. So I think that would be my challenge, is just look at it. And I think authentic is the key word. I think people are looking for real experiences that's authentic.
Yeah. Previously, at the end of an event, usually people would be emailed, via SurveyMonkey. We'd get our little email and we'd go, how was the food? How was the venue? How do you rate the staff? How was the content? And so on. And those would be our key metrics we would use to measure the success of our event and also to plan and to improve for future events. I'm sure the data has somewhat changed and how we measure the success. We are talking from idea to success. I'd like to just talk a little bit about how did you go about defining those metrics? So what were you looking at? Was it how long they participated for? Was it how many participated? And then speak a little bit about the tools you use to measure that and how that data is going to inform your decisions going forward.
Yeah, I think from us, we sat down quite early on and said, what would success look like for us in the virtual race? And I mean, participation was one, so we wanted to match what we would have had in the actual event. So we looked at about, between 15 to 20,000 people using the app to run with. The second was, how do we give back and create a return of investment for our sponsors? So, and that's when we basically conceptualized the live broadcast, because the live broadcast was 1.5 million people watching. It was actually an improvement on an actual event, and I think the human interest stories they added to that. And then lastly, for us, success was that the app couldn't fall over on the day. You're relying on technology. Your whole virtual concept is built around this app. So for us, it was important to partner with the right experts to make sure that our app was solid and, that it worked on the day. And for us, luckily, all of those things in the end transpired to success.
Great.
From our side as well, technology is key. So you want to make sure that is working. But I think, look, the key is making sure the right people are coming to your event. I think for us was number one. So obviously you want numbers, and look, people have been selling numbers for years on events. 100,000 people are coming to our event. But I think what I've become sort of a bit shrewd about is it the right 100,000 people that are coming to your event? So you want to make sure that if you're having a running event, you've got the best runners in the world, or some of the best people coming.
And you think it's easier to measure that now, that it's the right person?
You can see who's there, and you can see how much they're engaging now, which is great. I think the ability, though, to include people that you've never had before is key. So, just an event like yours, you'd get mainly South African participants. And the same with us. We had a lot of South African and key European people coming to our event. But like with Ocean Innovation Africa now, we had the World Ocean Council. We had World Economic Forum involved. We had the EU Commission. I mean, it's just because they didn't have to spend 5 days to come to South Africa to get involved. They want to, for sure. And
they will.
And that's the whole of continuing with events and doing them virtually, because you want those people to come here eventually. So if you're not doing something now, your event might be forgotten about, and if you are doing now, your event is going to be found out about. So it's and those people, I mean, who wouldn't want to come to Cape Town?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, it's amazing.
And can they all please just start coming again?
And I just quickly want to add, it's like when we developed the app and when we came up with the concept, we never knew it would become a marketing tool. And that's exactly what it did, because people could experience New York or Bloemfontein. That's the most positive feedback that we've received, is that people that have never come to even South Africa or Cape Town now want to come and experience the real race because they had the audio experience of it. So it's kind of one of the positives, but it was never intended objective that we actually had.
I just want to go to our chat box very quickly. There aren't very many questions, so obviously the three of us are doing an amazing job because we're answering all their questions. But we've got some lovely comments from Colette, Hotel Sky, thanks for joining. Lara van Sale, Eugene Relling, Asanda Bukula and Zelda Kutsia, thank you for your comments and for joining us. It's really lovely to know that you are enjoying the conversation. We've got about 5 minutes left, and I just want to end off with a question around not failures or mistakes. Apparently, there's no such thing as a mistake, only feedback, although none of my clients have ever said that to me when I've made a mistake. But if you had to look past over the last year, and if you specifically with the marathon and you with your 3 major events, what were your learnings over this last 3 years? And if you had maybe 2 or 3 things you would never do again or do differently, what would they be?
Look, I'll start with, I mean, maybe the 3 key learnings, and the first is being collaboration, and I think we all saw it in during the pandemic. It's to partner with the right experts. So, and I would encourage people to look at their competitors and take hands. I think that saying stronger together in this past year is definitely it resonates with me. And then your brand or your product, that can be global and not just local. And for us, it was having Mo Farah running in London, running the Cape Town Marathon in London, in the streets of London. I mean, so I think it created opportunities where you could look, and I think the same with your events, where all of a sudden you had a much bigger global audience. And I think then lastly, allow your product, I would say, almost evolution, allow your product and your concept to grow. I mean, as I said
Yeah.
earlier, we started with an app, and then we said, okay, well, let's add audio experiences to it. Let's add the Cape Town in a box. Let's add the broadcast. Let's add. It constantly evolved as we looked to our audience and said, what would they want, you know?
Yes.
And it was a lot of learnings and logistical challenges behind the scenes. But I think just some feedback and advice that I would give is to say, you know, listen to your industry peers, listen to your clients, listen to your critics, and take that feedback and evolve your virtual product, and continue evolving it. I mean, we're already looking at making changes to our app for the future because we received feedback on what worked and what didn't work. I think just to answer your questions on what we wouldn't do, I think it was just such a different year. You know, I won't say there isn't something specifically that I won't do. But there were a lot of learning. So I think that's the key, and be open to change and kind of just go with it. I think that was the beauty of the pandemic. It forced us all to think out of the box.
Go with the flow.
Go with the flow, have all these dreams, try and make some of them a reality. And yeah, just I think almost like roll with the punches.
But well done for going with the flow, because it's not always easy, and many of us have gotten stuck in that flow. So it's a big thing that you have run with it. Very quickly from you, Rex.
Yeah, I would just say don't be scared. Have great ideas. Come up with, try them. Not all of the ideas worked with us. We wanted to do all different tours around Cape Town and climb up the mountain and paddle around the harbour. It didn't take off because I think the main thing is people they just wanted to connect first of all. But
Yes.
I would also say I'm not going to give up on that because the idea of that kind of having a conference out on the shore rather than in a room is amazing. And the idea, the filming behind that and the creative side of it is lovely. So keep on having ideas, keep on trying things. It's normal with being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Not everything's going to work.
Yes.
But you've got to try them. You can't really be scared because no one knows right at the moment. Everybody's made mistakes in the last 12 months with projects. And I guess some people have probably come right, but it's been a tough year. So you just have to be super creative. And what I would say is just, if we're doing a show in South Africa, make it an African event.
Yeah.
You know, get an African performer in
That
as well. That's
authenticity.
beautiful. It's
Yeah.
so different. Something that no one overseas in Europe and Americas can have. And then that's going to attract people to watch it because it's something they wouldn't have seen before.
Amazing.
Don't make it just the same old event as everyone else in the world is doing.
Renee and Rex, this has been so much fun. Thank you so much for joining. We hope that you've been inspired by the conversation. I think there's a real encouragement that came out of our talk around, you know, no matter how crazy your idea may seem to yourself, that it's worth walking that road with your stakeholders, that road with your clients, with your teams, and so on. I also think there's a lot of comfort in the fact that a lot of this success is due to collaboration. This is not a journey that we are kind of suggesting you walk on your own. So that was really encouraging to me. I think collaboration is key, especially when we look at how we engage with venues going forward. I think that's quite inspiring as to how do we reimagine how, as event organizers, how do we reimagine that relationship with our venues. So thank you all for joining us. I think there's going to be a very short video break. And up at 11:10 is our well-loved Jacques Verscheer. He'll be facilitating another panel discussion here live from our studio called Learning a New Language. So please stay tuned for that. And remember to hashtag us with hashtag Business Events Week, hashtag Where Meetings Matter, and hashtag Meeting Cape Town. Thank you for joining us.
Guys, thank you for staying tuned for that panel discussion. It's great to see that people are still out there and making their way in such a difficult and terrible time. And again, if at first you don't succeed, try again. I think everyone has reinvented themselves. I've seen so many people doing new hobbies, taking up new businesses, a lot of food businesses that have come up in this time, people kind of trying to find their way of just doing something different, but it's important to also try to do and reinvent yourself in your business. And I think our panel that was just here shared some great insights, both on what they did that succeeded and also learnings that they had. So without further ado, we're going to have a short break. If you want to go and stretch your legs or go for the toilet break or tinkle, please do so now. Otherwise, stay tuned. We're going to play a short little video that Westkroy has produced, and I'm sure you'll all know this song by now. And if you want to jive with us, please feel free to do so virtually. This is a great time to maybe take a selfie and a picture, and remember to post that on all the social media platforms. So without further ado, here's the video.
Good morning, Africa. Yes, we are ready. The borders have been opened, and we are ready to welcome the world. To all you beautiful people out there, I know the perfect way to get your day started.
Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze, zuhambe nami. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze, dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze, zuhambe nami. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze, Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Jerusalema, ikhaya lami, ilondoloze, uhambe nami, zungangishilana. Dawo yami ayikholana, buso wami awukholana. Ilondoloze, zuhambe nami.
So I'm sure, you guys have seen me on the dance floor before. Don't make like you haven't seen me at Meetings Africa and Saki. Yeah, you know you've seen me. May not have seen you, but that's another story for another time. So guys, thank you for that panel. Over to the next panel that we have, learning a new language. I think 2020 into 2021 has been steep learning curves, and we've all been thrust into the digital world, the virtual world, the online world, the hybrid world, and a lot of our time is being spent trying to figure out what this all means. And for that, we've ensembled a great cast behind me, a panel that is going to share their insights as well as their learnings. So without further ado, I hand over to our moderator, Jacques Fauché.
Thank you, Kurt, for that introduction. Much appreciated. And I would like to welcome my panel over here. So first of all, and I know that many of you have probably seen the schedule or the program for today, but I'm still just quickly going to introduce them. First, we've got Angelique Shackleton, who's flown in all the way from Johannesburg for today, and she's the marketing director for multimedia. They are an AV audio supplier to the live events industry. Then next we have Esmerie Steinhoffel, whom I might refer to as S from time to time. And she's the regional director for Africa for ICA. And then lastly, on the far right for you, we've got Zandri, who's the brand influencer at the Century City Convention Center. So welcome and thank you very much for joining me here today. I'm first quickly just going to clarify something because there's a lot of discussion, and I've actually been in debates about this, which I find quite hard because I think there's more important things to discuss than what does hybrid mean in the conference world. So virtual means if everybody, all the delegates are at home and they are all joining online. In person is what we were all used to pre-2020 up until March 2020, where you are sitting, the delegates are in the venue attending a conference, a meeting, a show, or whatever it might be. And then lastly, a hybrid. This is what we are all moving into, and this is what the prediction is for the future, is that there will always be a hybrid element because of the new norm, whichever we would like to call it. And a hybrid is a conference, a trade show, a seminar, or any other meeting that combines a live in-person meeting or delegates attending live with a virtual online meeting where the delegates are attending via the internet in a room. So that is according to Wikipedia and quite a few other sources. And that is what we're going to discuss today and to help and try and guide you on that. So I'm going to start with Esmerie. You are my first question here for the day. So ICA, first of all, tell us a little bit for the people who do not know what ICA stands for. What does ICA stand for? What is it all about? And then if you can tell us, what were the first thoughts that went through your mind when you were told that ICA is going to do a hybrid conference for 2020?
Thank you, Jacques. ICA is the International Congress and Convention Association. We're an international association, so not a corporate company. We don't work in the corporate space or in the government space. We've got about 1,000 member companies globally in over 100 countries. And we have an annual event as per the ICA bylaws. We need to meet annually. Our conference normally rotates globally, and for 2020, it was awarded to take place in Kaohsiung, Chinese Taipei. And then, as we all know, COVID happened, and the ICA board decided that we need to give exposure to all our members because in some countries, certain of our members were able to travel, especially regionally. And that is when the hybrid Congress for 2020 was decided on, and I did have no idea of what was going to happen over the next few months until the beginning of November last year.
Good. I'm sure that was a proper challenge for you. So for those who don't know, the ICA conference did happen on many continents and all regionally. And it was actually also held, the South African one, or for Africa, was held at Century City. So Zandri, before COVID, after COVID, how did you all have to adapt to facilitate a hybrid conference? And ICA was one of the very first hybrid conferences that everybody spoke about, especially in our industry. How did you all adapt to that?
So ICA took place in November last year at our conference center. I chose 3 things to talk about, that the key things how we needed to adapt. And the first one was, all of a sudden, our halls and our forward book was cleared. but we realized that our clients still had to get their message out. They still had to talk to their staff. They still had to talk to their clients. And we could provide the tools and the expertise to facilitate this process. So what we did is we partnered with streaming and studio specialists, multimedia, and we immediately set up a large LED studio in one of our halls, and then also a smaller green screen studio so that we could assist with all their new virtual needs. The studios have since evolved a bit, but we could immediately help them. The second thing that I want to stress, because this is huge, is we had to, as staff and as employees, we had to upskill and we had to educate ourselves because our conversations with our clients changed completely. I mean, if I can, Esmery and I had conversations about the hybrid conference, and we spoke about camera angles and lower thirds, things that we've never spoken about before. And then the third thing is, of course, health and safety, adapting to the COVID protocols, training staff, and having everything in place to make it a safe space for our guests to come to.
Okay, perfect. Thanks very much. Angelique, as we've just heard, you guys came in, you've put up a big screen, and you really jumped into the opportunity to quickly react to what has now become our new normal of conferencing and meeting. How do you go about guiding a client, especially if they have not been in this situation before? Because there are so many clients out there that I feel needs this kind of education. You know, it's not just, and we're not putting Zoom down. There is nothing wrong with a Zoom call. It has its place. Teams meetings, everything still has its place. But to take it to that next step and that next level, to go to a studio or setup like what we've got here today, it really just changes the environment a little bit, and the interactivity, it just helps us to sort of like move forward, and it's much better to converse around it. So how do you guide the client if it is their first time, almost like a 101 guide for dummies, if they want to do a hybrid conference from a technical point of view?
Okay. I think that how we've approached the situation has been firstly to make it hyper seamless for the client. So what we mean by that is traditionally, I think we've all used briefing docs, but a briefing doc that outlines exactly what the client is going to be experiencing from a technical perspective, the information we need when we need it, and then finding out from the client, what do you need? What are the features and benefits that need to be accessible on whatever platform you're using, as you've alluded to, and making sure that from a technical perspective, we can offer everything we can to really make it a production. I think what we found in terms of guiding the client is that one of the pivotal things is the client understanding that this is not just a live event anymore, it really is a production, and that there's more work, not less work, that goes into making the whole thing happen.
Yes, and what you've just said there's more work and not less work. And I think that is something that we all needed to get our heads around, even us from the industry. I mean, as if you said, like, it was just like, wow, what's next, and you needed to adapt your studio, etc. So it is really more work. So maybe let's dig into that a little bit. We used to, in the past, you book a venue, you get your technical, you decide on the menu, you're lucky to have a lacquer tasting and what wine you're going to pair with what, and then you send out invitations to the event happen. But now it is that extra step further. So what are the other elements that needs to now be brought into the situation? Esmery, what did you guys find from an ICA point of view? What kind of curveballs did they throw your way immediately?
I think, first of all, the whole technical aspect was all these new words, as Andri mentioned, lower thirds, pips. Like, I've never dealt with that type of stuff. And to Angelique's point, it's key to have that supplier that also prompts the client that might not ask for certain things in a budget to say, well, are you aware, do you know, maybe it's an idea to add certain things. And then also, and there are actually so many examples. One challenge was, because our speakers weren't all people that I knew, we tried to get not known people, not necessarily also from the industry. So I would send an email to a potential speaker. I don't have the person's mobile number.
Yeah.
They don't reply to my email. They may be not working. So, yeah, you really get stuck. Nobody answers the call in the office. And then also practically, and I think that's a big thing about streaming, because we had 8 regional hubs globally, it was time zones all over the world. So depending on where your speakers were from, sometimes you had to do a briefing like very early in the morning. So having an international event also brought that whole international time zone. I mean, I now exactly know what is CET and how many hours behind or ahead it is for us. Another big thing that happened, and whenever I speak to people, if there's one thing that I'm really stressing, is we had virtual speakers and we had in-person speakers that came to the venue. Our conference started on the Monday. On the Sunday, 2 of the Cape Town-based speakers phoned me to say that they're not well.
Oh my gosh.
We didn't pre-record because we sort of assumed because they're in Cape Town, they will be able to be there on the day. Luckily, there were time and they felt well enough to do the recording on the Sunday, so at least we were able to show the session, although not live on stage. So it's really all these unknown curveballs that just happen, and it's organizing 2 events. Yes, it's one event, but it's your virtual attendees, all your links, and it's your in-person speakers and delegates that are doing stuff the way we were used to.
Of course.
So I think there are just so many facets, a lot more than what we used to have with in-person conferences.
Absolutely. So we know that the venue still needs to be booked for the in-person conference. So that is the cost that is unfortunately going to be there. It might be a bit less from time to time, Zandri, not less in cost, but in terms of space that is needed. I can imagine.
Yes.
Yeah, your mic, please. So everybody at home can hear you.
Definitely less space, yeah, depending on, and when you have hybrid, of course, you need more space as well because you need social distancing between all of your delegates that's in-house. So, yeah, it depends from
Absolutely.
to the other.
So unfortunately, there is that extra cost that comes with it. And then in terms of technical, Angelique, what additional technical would there be needed apart from what there usually is needed for the in-person? What are the additional things that has to now be thought of for a streaming element?
Well, I think that the most pivotal point here is the fact that there really is a back-end IT infrastructure that effectively most technical companies are running now that facilitates rather the streaming process. I know that from our end, we've got a whole IT team currently that handles the building of any websites, holding pages, building essentially a platform to facilitate speaker bios, being able to access videos once the event has already happened, being able to send out and interact on social media whilst remaining on the page. So that's a cost people need to factor in. I think people assume that it's included in the technical costs, and it's not. It's a standalone cost. And then as you progress to the event itself, obviously we're in sort of a live studio environment now where you've got the wonderful view behind us. But if there's an LED screen that needs to be built, clients now might say, well, I want the LED screen at my office. That almost reverts to a live event in terms of costing.
Yes.
It's not sort of pre-booked studio pricing. So all of these things need to be taken into account. And then redundancy that needs to be built in as well. So I think an example that'll be familiar to all of us right now is load shedding. The venue you're in, does the venue you're in have a generator? Are you opting to run generator from the start of the event, or are you opting to have 15 to 30 second downtime and then have the generator kick in? Is the technical team on UPS? So does that all stay up, or is that part of the downtime? What is the filler for that time that the systems need to come back online? So all of these things are really, really important, and the client does need to realize that, having all of these nice to haves, redundancy is nice to have. It's great when you have it, but it is an additional cost.
Definitely, especially, thanks to Eskom, we really need to think of that, and that is that additional cost. So I think we pretty much also need whatever you need for a studio. And I would actually like to show you what it looks like where we are right now. Because right now, this is what it looks like although we've got this fantastic view behind us, we still have to set up a lot of equipment in this venue to make sure this is functional. There's cameras, there's crew. It is like this is a live event, although you guys just can't see it right now. The show needs to be called, etc. There's still a lot of switching up equipment that is needed. There's still audio equipment needed. So this is a proper big production, although you might have saved a little bit of money for the fact that we are essentially in a beautiful bar with a phenomenal backdrop behind us. So it sort of like is that twofold thing. But it also gives you the option to be anywhere. I mean, we are in a bar with an awesome view. Or you could be in a studio and have people in front of you. So we need to step out of that box. We need to really get out of that. So I think we've covered the cost element and the variances on that. But something that you've mentioned earlier on is when someone said to you, "Pip," what did you think that was the first time, apart from the thing that you come in your peach? Can you explain to us what you thought and what it really is, if you remember?
A picture in a picture.
There we go. Well done.
And again, I think with hybrid events even more, it's a team effort. It's the client, it's the venue, it's the AV company. Medical Association for Dentists. Now, on that lower third, all of a sudden it was, well, it's too long.
Yes.
So then it was quickly, okay, are we now going to use abbreviations, or are we going to use INT versus international? And then also with regards to, just to mention about the cost. So we focus on the cost of the event on the event day. But with a lot of the virtual speakers, you need to send them the links. You have to have a dry run before the time, test and see if they know where to click this, where to click that. That means the team, it's not something I can just do on my own. Also for pre-recordings, it's additional time for the company to have staff there to actually do these pre-recordings. Yes, you can maybe do it on a Zoom, but if it's an international production, and hybrid is production. I think that was, when I realized that, the penny dropped, that this is a completely different ballgame.
Absolutely. And Zandra, I'm sure that from that point of view, that's something that you probably include in your questions now when you do speak to your clients.
Exactly. We had to completely change the way we have a conversation with our clients, because we need to educate them, and we need a very clear brief of exactly what the expectation is when the client wants to come for their event. We need to align the correct resources in order to pull off the correct event. So that comes again with what I said, how to educate and upskill ourselves. Completely different conversations now than before. And we often get in the technical team to also assist and help us with those.
But that is why they are there. And something else that I can also like to add to that is that apart from the fact that all the recordings has to happen in advance, that's camera crew that has to be booked. There's some form of a director that has to be booked, because the speaker don't know to look down and catch his bald spot, or don't look up his nose and all those kind of things. So all of that is needed. Someone has to get booked, and that has to be discussed. A venue has to be booked. And then there's, of course, the editing of that afterwards, so that it all looks nice and neat and is ready packaged to go out. So that really does change things a little bit. Something that I know came up a little bit earlier on when we were just having a chat is someone mentioned something about the RFP, which I actually want to dig in a little bit more, because I think that that's very important. And Esme, maybe as a client side, if you can talk us a little bit more through the RFP, the request for proposals, if someone doesn't know, and how you think it should now be compared to how it was pre-COVID.
Jacques, just to maybe go a step back. So when we decided to have this hybrid event with 8 regional hubs, so Asia Pacific, Africa, Middle East, for example, Europe, Latin America, South America, Latin America and North America, agents wanted to bid to host the event. So that was the whole process before we even started to look at all the detail of what's going to happen. So the bid was awarded by the Cape Town and Western Cape Convention Bureau and the South African National Convention Bureau. And then also all our RFP requirements were sent to all the regional hubs. Now, a lot of things are the same, but a lot of things are also different. And that was, we in the end didn't put enough detail in the RFP, so things like the dry runs wasn't part of the initial costing. So that was an additional cost that we had to pay for after the event. Even just something practical, on the Monday of the event, we were asked to interview some of our members. Now, I can see all the cameras in front of me. It's not easy to just move all of them to the tea break area and quickly have an interview with Corneille, as an example. So again, I mean, the devil is in the detail, and now if I must do another event, which we are going to do this year, I will do lots of things very different. And rather, if you're not sure, get a costing. And I think it's also that conversation again with, like Zandri said, prompting the client, the AV technical supplier prompting the client. I think by now we all know what was maybe not in an RFP that needed to be added. So really working together as a team, and the detail in the RFP, otherwise you are going to get an additional cost.
Perfect. So that's very important. I would put that as a tick point. Relook at the way you ask for quotes and rely on the people who know. Get people who know, firstly, because not everybody does, and then speak to them and ask them for help and guidance as you go along. And if someone, there's nothing wrong with questioning a cost, because we can't just accept what we get, but there's a reason for these things. Unfortunately, this is the new way that we are living and working going forward. And then something that you've mentioned just now is very important, is rehearsal, rehearsal, rehearsal. Whether the person is sitting here where there's an interaction, or it is on stage, or whether they are dialing in from Timbuktu, it doesn't matter. All of that needs to be rehearsed, especially with the technical team, especially with them knowing when they're going to be in, especially when they are remote. It's so difficult to communicate with them. They can't answer their phone, but they're sitting in a different country, and they need to know that they are going to go live at this time, etc. Speaking of timekeeping, Angelique, when it comes to these things, timing is everything, and we need to stick to the timing extremely. Is there something that you can elaborate on all of that for us? How does it work in the virtual world, streaming things compared to the normal world? We're like, coffee break's still going, you know.
I think it's important to be aware of the fact that if it's happening online, unlike the virtual world, like you said, you can't sort of go up to the tech desk and say, hold on, hold it, please. Coffee break is still happening. If it says it's going live at 10 o'clock, it's going live. You know, everything else, be damned, it's happening. So people must be aware of the fact that they've got to plan that accordingly, particularly if they've got events or things that are happening on the back end. You know, a lot of people now are trying to bring in different aspects, so desk drops or meal drops, so that people who are, dialing into the hybrid event virtually still feel like they're part of it. Those things obviously have to be kept in a sequential order, and they really need to be spot on to make sure that things flow and that the guest experience isn't missed. I think in terms of timing and the management of time on the day, what we found is that shorter is better. I know that it's sort of overkill now. People really do have Zoom fatigue, and you can actually see the numbers drop off as the hours go on. So keeping those time slots for each speaker or each panel discussion or each segment small and manageable, so that people can sort of digest the info, take a break, reset, and come back.
Perfect. And then when ICA did your conference, and I've been fortunate, I've been to one of the ICA conferences, and it's an absolute blast, but there's so many different elements to it, and there's different events that happen. How did you incorporate the online experience compared to the lucky delegates who have bums in the seats and have an in-person experience?
What definitely helped our event is that online virtual attendees could listen to any of the sessions. So for example, if we had lunch on the Monday, they could listen to a session at the hub in Riyadh in the Middle East. What is different is when you're in person, you can listen to a speaker for 45 minutes. To listen to a speaker virtually for 45 minutes isn't exactly the same.
It's long.
So that definitely helped, that there were other sessions that the virtual attendees could listen to. Also, if maybe one of the speakers at the Africa Hub, they didn't feel they wanted to listen to, they could listen to a speaker at the hub in Sarawak. Mentioning that the different facets of our event, we also had an out-of-the-box session where we actually went to Intaka Island. So the attendees that were virtual couldn't go to Intaka Island.
Of course.
But again, it's either then, I think because a virtual attendee does need a little bit more of a break, they would then just at home or in the office go and have a cup of coffee, or like we all are reminded often nowadays with virtual events, take a few snacks while you sit. Then I just wanted to also add to what Angelica said. On the day of the event, so we had all the hubs streamed to a studio in the UK. Now, of course, luckily with the venue that we had, it wasn't a problem with load shedding. But at one point, there was nothing. So the first thing I do is like, Tabit, is it the problem on our side? And it was no, the problem was in the UK. So you need your moderator, because you don't know for how long there's going to be a break in the transmission. So you also need to brief your moderator, and that's something that we didn't do. Luckily, our moderator thought on his feet, but you might have to keep the audience engaged for 10 minutes, 5 minutes, half an hour. So that whole sort of what I call a filler for the moderator, should anything happen, is also important. And that's for the delegate in the venue as well as for the delegate that is attending virtually.
Perfect. I think that's very important, because it is that pregnant pause, that lull, and it's just the way to get through it. And even if there are pre-recorded sessions, so that if something goes wrong only in one area, it can be streamed from another area to other people, because we have load shedding. Other people are not as fortunate as us to take out lamps and candles, you know. So we get used to this romantic thing, you know, get to know your partner again at night over a candle, you know. But it's not like that for other people in other countries. So things can then be streamed via the byte to overcome that. So that's a very valid point. Well done. I also wanted, there was something that someone mentioned earlier on that I actually wanted to talk about, and I can't. You mentioned earlier on getting your speakers from all over the world. Don't you all think that it is fantastic that we can have someone from anywhere? If we really want, we can have Bill Gates talk on a topic that, you know, about the Gates Foundation while he is not even here. And that's something we never would have done in the past. We never would have thought of it.
I want to comment on that, because we normally get about 1,000 delegates for an in-person event. We had 1,500 attendees, so more members were able to listen to the sessions.
It's very good.
And also we had 200 speakers.
How many do you usually have if it's in person?
In person, because the in-person event is also longer.
Of course, yes.
So about 60. With all because then we also have your various breakouts. And also what we did to give the whole event a bit of a longer shelf life is the event took place beginning of November. All delegates who registered either in person or virtually could actually listen to the recordings, and it was live on the platform until the end of December. So it had a longer shelf life.
That's very nice, and that's a 50% increase in attending also. That's fantastic, because people don't have to travel. That's very good. Wow, okay. The other thing that I wanted to mention also is, Zandri, from your side, what tips do you have to the clients when they're dealing with the venues, or for other venues and other properties? What tips would you have for them?
I think, firstly, I can think of about 6 already that I want to mention. There's so many.
Go for it.
But firstly, COVID compliance when choosing a venue is now non-negotiable.
Yes.
So that's number one. Very important for every client out there is to look for flexibility in terms of contracting, in terms of reduction of numbers or venues, attrition clauses, deposit payments. We spoke earlier about having the conversation. Have the conversation. We all pride ourselves on being flexible, and it's never been as important as it is right now. I think the capability of a venue to change from in-person to hybrid to virtual very quickly is very important.
Oh, yes, because our levels change. It's not only with ESCOM,
Yes.
but also thanks to Uncle Cyril, so we never know.
You never know how regulations change. Who might get ill? And like you said earlier, 2 of the Cape Town speakers couldn't come. There's just a lot more uncontrollables that you need to prepare for and troubleshoot for beforehand. Choose a venue with excellent Wi-Fi, who can put in a dedicated hardline for your event like this. Very important. Have a generator that's working. I would say if we sort of know when load shedding is scheduled. So just run that event on the generator from the start, even if you know an hour in load shedding is starting, just so that a 30-second drop in the virtual world is hectic. You lose a lot of viewers in that time. And then I think align yourself with a venue that's got an excellent events team and technical team, because you need the expertise. You need them to be available 24/7 because you're working with all different time zones now. Pre-recordings, everything that needs to happen at all times. So I think align yourself just with people with the expertise to help you.
I completely echo that, because that is really the success of the event ultimately. Draw on people who know, or at least you think they know, because I think we're all learning as we go along, because we've been catapulted 10 years in advance. You know, what we all thought was going to be, this is like beyond 2000 when we were little. It's now beyond 2050, but it's happening now, beyond 2020. So it is completely different. I'm going to just go quickly cut to some questions, because some are coming through and apparently I'm technically challenged on the specific device in front of me because I can't get more info out of it. But Zandri, you've actually just answered a question that came from Anonymous, some tips and lessons that you've learned, so thank you very much. And then there's half a question I see here which says, a question I'm sure we've heard enough of is hybrid events, and I think they want to know, is it a thing of the future? And I tend to agree. Angelique?
I think from my perspective, hybrid events are really the way that things are going to be for the foreseeable future and beyond. So what I mean by that now, and I think as Ez has already alluded to, the fact that they had a higher uptake of delegates for this year's conference over the previous years really shown that there is benefit to doing it, doing a hybrid event rather, excuse me. So I think that making sure that you're combining both of those but while being cognizant of the challenges that it can pose is really pertinent. So from the technical side, what I would say is be aware of the fact that when you're holding a hybrid event, you are in essence holding 2 events, and from a technical perspective, I almost want 2 sets of crew in there working together, but there's one side that's dealing specifically with the streaming and one side that's dealing with the live guest experience.
Yeah.
So people's expectation that, oh, hold on, from a technical perspective, shouldn't this be cheaper? No, that's not how this works. There's a lot more factors and a lot more things that go into it. One thing I want to add as well, and I think that we're blessed in South Africa with a plethora of technical companies who are really on it in terms of delivering, obviously the crew that are helping us out today as well, but make sure that you have a technical partner, my one tip, who is on it. And by on it, I mean who have the experience of doing live and hybrid. So for example, ask for what they've done in the past. So from a multimedia perspective, we've been the technical supplier for The Voice, so South Africa, Nigeria, Angola, the Francophone countries, etc.
Yeah.
And that has been a live component exclusively, but a hybrid event as well, at the Mosaic Theatre in Johannesburg with a couple of hundred people live on Mnet. So make sure that people know what they're talking about, that they know what they're doing, and that you are in safe hands. I think that in this new environment and going forward, and I think will testify to this as well. It used to be sort of book a venue, book the food, book the speakers. I'll get to technical when I get to it.
Yes.
The reverse is true.
What's your budget? Sorry, no. Can you make that cheaper?
Yeah, the reverse is true now. I think we've always felt this way, but technical needs to come first. and you need to really be consulting with them from day one, and you build your event around that now.
I tend to agree with you. I think technical has definitely moved up a little bit because there's so many things that are relying on it at the moment. You know, it's the internet and all these things that we've touched on already. So that's true. Is your thoughts on hybrid going forward?
Our industry misses face-to-face.
Oof, amen.
That is what we're waiting for. That's what we're ready for. But I do think for at least 2021 and 2022, definitely hybrid. And I think over time, as internationally borders open, more people are getting vaccinated, you will see the scale tilting a little bit with still virtual, because I think that also gives more opportunity for delegates to attend and learn and virtually attend an event, because maybe they couldn't afford the airline ticket or the budget wasn't there. And even after that, but more people attending in person with a smaller percentage attending virtually.
Absolutely. I think it just makes sense, doesn't it? I love your honesty. Enough of this.
But I do agree with Esmery as well. I think for at least 2 years, it's going to be the reality of conferences. For a long time, especially international, you can't make people travel if they don't want to, and you still want to have the biggest audience and educate as many people as you can. So people will appreciate, because we miss it so much. So they will be in person, but we'll have to have a virtual component as well.
Definitely. I think also that it's going to depend on the kind of event. I think if we're talking about association conferences, like in the medical field or any, you know, where it is really about sharing knowledge, and a lot of those people are not so worried about seeing people face to face. I think the hybrid element will actually be elevated, and it will be more that, you know, someone from Scandinavia don't really care to fly in, but they do just want to listen to someone who has just done a heart transplant in a different way, and what their challenges were, and they just want to log in for that session. And then I do think if there is a lot of meetings is about the networking, and that it is a bit more of a challenge, and people who want to network are the people like us who like to have a coffee and a glass of wine and yap around it. So I think the kind of meeting is also going to be dictated in terms of the element of hybridity that goes with it. I don't know if hybridity is a word or if it's just a jargonism going forward.
It's now a word.
It's now a word. Thanks, Andre. So I just want to see if there's any other things that I wanted to just touch on. Yes, lastly, I think this is actually quite an important one because we've got about 2 minutes left. So any pitfalls that there is that you can warn people against, or yes, let's call it warn them against, that they should look out for when they do events? Can we start with the technical side?
Sure. I think we had a client who wanted to be able to have the attendees for the virtual meeting ask questions, but that their face would come up on the screen and ask a question. We said, okay, are you aware that X, Y, and Z could happen? They said, yes, 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 it's going to be great, let's do it. So the person came up, asked their question, camera came on, he was in his gown, lying in bed. You're live, so it does create a bit of a challenge, so be careful. You know, if you want the live Q&A, you can have it, but maybe you know, select previous questions from the session before and queue those people up separately. I think that the second thing for me is the level of interactivity you want. People say, well, I want Q&A. I think I would recommend a moderated Q&A because you know, you can get some questions that aren't relevant and they sort of begin to filter through the chat feed and they can distract people. And I think the final thing for me would really be sit down with a specialist. A lot of us have vast amounts of live experience, but as we've said, and as everyone's mentioned, the hybrid game is new for many people.
Yes.
So sit down with a specialist and really flesh through what you want in some detail so that the costing can be as accurate as possible. You can avoid any surprises. You know what venue space you need, etc.
Perfect. And in 30 seconds?
Ask if you don't know. We all in this together. Suppliers, venues, corporates, government, we all in this together.
Absolutely.
Ask. If you don't know what a PIP is, ask.
Yes.
Even with this session today is like a lot of you guys will already have my info or you can get it later on. I'm more than happy to share any information. It's a team effort. We need to get through this.
Perfect. And from you, Zandri, 30 seconds?
I actually just agree. There's so many uncontrollables that can happen during this. So just talk through it and test. If you use a platform, be sure that you've got support on the back end because anything can happen.
Definitely.
A moderator can think on its feet and keep the show going, but then also just that things can be sorted out immediately. Otherwise, you're going to lose your audience.
Perfect.
So, yeah.
Thanks so much. And thank you very much, ladies, for joining me here today. And thank you, everybody who logged on. It was great having you, I'm sure. For those who are still in their pajamas, enjoying their coffee, thanks so much.
Guys, that was quite a day. Thankfully, in virtual events, you actually finish before 12. That's unheard of in normal events. But thank you for logging on at home. Thank you for our great panel discussions we had today. Guys, please, we're not getting the traction we want on that. 3 nights accommodation. Great. And then also 1 to 7 p.m. today, B2B Connect. Please go and make those appointments. Again, accommodation, dinner's up for grabs if you make those appointments with the exhibitors. So guys, thank you for joining us today. We will be back from Bloberg Hotel tomorrow at 10 a.m. So we look forward for you to see me because I can't see you, but we'll see you at Saki tonight. And we maybe will cheers from 1.5 meters away from each other. So guys, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for the great panel we had. Thank you for our virtual panelists that we had from Amanda from SANCB. So guys, see you tomorrow.